Story 1. I am 47. I think I have been mentally in my late 20s for about 35 years now. I did not fit in as a kid or teenager at all, then I did, and now I do not again. But I have been the same person all along. Story 2. Many senior citizens think they are still 40 or 20, not 70 or 80. Then their body gives a harsh reminder. Story 3. In some aspects, I am absolutely stuck in the same state of arrested development that I have been in since I was a teenager. In other aspects, I am old and done. Put me in a nursing home, give me painkillers, and let me die with dignity. Story 4. Actually 39, I still feel mentally like I am in my mid to late 20s. I also somehow simultaneously feel like I belong at the kids' table. Story 5. I am 80 years old, and in my dreams, I always have dark hair and agile movements. I guess my inner self is stuck in my late 30s or early 40s. However, unlike that period of my life, I no longer care about anyone or anything. Story 6. 67 and about 40 mentally. It is probably younger, but I do have the common sense gene you get as you age. Story 7. I am 40 but feel less mature than I did at 25. Maybe because I realize now that I do not know what I am doing. Story 8. I just drew a penis in my tomato soup with the coconut cream drizzle. I am drinking apple juice with Fireball whiskey and Boo Light rye whiskey. I'm about to relax while watching Gilmore Girls on a Friday night. I may sneak out for a cigarette. You tell me. I'm almost 37, but I'm feeling forever young. Forever young. I want to be forever young. Story 9. I have it stuck in my head that I am about 28. I am actually considerably older. I think I am going to have a hard time on my deathbed, hopefully not anytime soon, admitting that it is really time to go when I am 100% convinced I am really 28. Do not get me wrong. I am not an older person who tries to dress and act like a teenager, and I really have no idea why that specific age, but it is kind of a problem. I do still ride my dirt bike, though. It is not smart, but I am an adult and I do what I damn well please. Story 10. 48 and about 20. It starts to get strange when you realize how long ago certain things were that still feel recent in your mind. One of life's little jokes, I suppose. Story 11. I am 66 and sometimes feel more like 25 to 30. Usually, I feel closer to 80. My mother is 90 and says she feels like 16 until she looks in the mirror and sees an older lady. She looks about 70, maybe. Story 12. Honestly, I do not think I have changed too much mentally since I was 25. No new opinions or advancements. However, my knee cracks now. Story 13. I am 62 years old. It is amazing to me how youthful 62-year-olds are these days. In my youth, they were considered really old. Story 14. I am 47 years old biologically. At work, I am 32, as I outwork most people around that age. On the roads, I drive like a 25-year-old with a sporty car. At parties, I am a delightful 27-year-old who enjoys table games, wine, and discussing the philosophy of life. At home, I am like a 12-year-old kid with video games, arts and crafts, and eating habits similar to a middle school latchkey child. At the orthopedic doctor's, I am 65, affected by arthritis in all my joints. With my husband, I am 75, interested in antique stores and early dinners with no sexual activity. Story 15. Late 30s. Still feel like I am 18 and do not know anything about what I am doing at work. Other days, I feel like I am in my late 50s with the stress of managing my adult life. Story 16. 45 and I can't answer the second part. My self-image is about 25, but in terms of professional knowledge and maturity, I am my age. Now, I am going to play another 10,000 hours of Skyrim. Story 17. I am 41, but I stopped feeling older mentally around 23. Maturity-wise, I grew up when my son was born, ready to be a man, but when my daughter was born, I realized my mistake and grew back down. I have never looked back. Story 18. I am 43 years old, but mentally I feel about 25. However, there is also an older part of me around 80 years old who wants quiet and to go to bed at 8 p.m. It is unusual. Story 19. 50s but work in the food industry and much of the crew are much younger, so mentally late teens to mid-20s. Story 20. I am under 18, but I am quite mature, and people have told me that I sound and speak like I am in my late 30s. Story 21. Mentally not sure, maybe mid to late 30s. But I am trying not to be like that. I am already too tired. Story 22. I am 53 and mentally I am 29. I have a child older than my mental age, and that is strange. Also, I am Generation X, so physically I feel 80. Story 23. I am chronologically 40 years old, physically 6 feet 3 inches tall, and rather beefy. My mind and automatic instincts, however, insist that I should be somewhere in my early to mid-20s. The body type and aesthetic I should have is something along the lines of a 5 feet 8 inches girl next door, library nerd, or lazy goth lesbian. This juxtaposition is a really difficult circle to square, and I keep experiencing a strange funhouse mirror effect when I interact with the world. Story 24. 49 and late 20s. I think I was mentally an adult at age 9, though. I am pretty much the same mentally, so I am probably stunted. Story 25. My favorite saying is, we never actually grow up. We just learn how to act in public. So technically, I am still a child. Story 26. 25 and based solely on how thoughtful and wise I am, probably around 35 to 40. Based on other things like 12. Story 27. I am 34, and I feel like I am 50 mentally. I dislike most people and question why the easiest requests are so impossible for anyone to fulfill. Story 28. According to everyone who knows me, I am 31 years old, with the humor of a 10-year-old and the hobbies of an 80-year-old. Story 29. I am 55 years old. Mentally, I am between 49 and my current age, with brief moments feeling like my early 20s. My libido stopped aging at 15 and is still currently very high. Story 30. At 47, my attitude is that there is no such thing as being old. You are either young or young at heart. My husband is about to turn 57 and still acts like a teenager. Story 31. I am 30 years old. I think my mentality is a little older, but at the same time, maybe it matches my age. I am old enough to know better but young enough to still learn and make mistakes. Figuring it out. Story 32. I am 43, but I think I am mentally 19. Sometimes I feel like I am just pretending to be a mature adult, mother, and wife. Story 33. Actual age. 42. Humor. 15 to 18-year-old boy. I blame my son. Adulting ability 20s, maybe 30s. I don't have it all figured out, and I still wish I were a more adult. I should not be left unsupervised with sweets, wild animals, or dangerous equipment. Children are probably fine. Honestly, I shouldn't be left unattended by a fire either. Mental health and exhaustion. 65. With a bad back and a permanent, get off my lawn attitude. Story 34. I am 34 and mentally around 30. I know I cannot do certain things anymore, and my level of angst is slowly decreasing. That being said, I feel like I am in denial that I am in my 30s and still wish I were 21. Story 35. 68, and that feels about right. I am not as good as I once was, but I am as good once as I ever was. Rest in peace, Toby Keith. Story 36. Looking back at the years going by like so many summer fields. At 65, I was 17 and running up 101. I do not know where I am running now, I am just running on. Story 37. I think I am quite wise for my age and am an old soul, but I can also be very silly sometimes, so it averages out to about 40. Story 38. I am 22 and I feel like a 56-year-old grandfather who does not understand young people today or remember their names. Story 39. 37 and a strange mixture of 87 and 32. 87 because I have old lady habits, and 32 because I damaged my brain and feel stuck in the middle. Story 40. Physically in my mid-40s, but feel like I am in my 60s. I even have the get off my lawn mentality towards most people. Story 41. At 24, I feel 16. Sometimes I think, I need an adult. Then it takes a second and I realize, I am the adult. Story 42. At 27, I sometimes feel no older than 22. Old enough to do things, but young enough to be mistaken for a teenager. I definitely feel as though my maturity has regressed. Story 43. I am 31, but mentally I still feel like a high school senior. The only time I feel like an adult is when someone needs me to help them with something or when I am paying a bill. Story 44. Over 50, but feel the same as when I was 30. I think liking comic book movies and shows, plus playing softball and Magic. The Gathering keeps me young. Story 45. I am 22, but I think mentally I am 19 or 21 because I wish I could be 19 or 21 for the rest of my life. I like those numbers better. Story 46. I am 21, but I have not changed mentally since I was 17. Maybe I am more of an adult, but other than that, I am the exact same. So I guess 17. Story 47. I am 16, but unless I am in my immature moments, I am like 80. I just want to be long retired and yell at kids to get off my lawn. Story 48. I am 25 now, but due to trauma, other life experiences, and a mix of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety, it really feels like I am 80. I have been told since I was 16 that I seem way older than I am, although the beard I grew in high school did not help. My family are first-generation immigrants. My father was in the military, and my mother was absent. I tried to make things better for myself by pouring myself into my studies. I got into engineering for university and connected with civil and structural engineering. After about 5 years of stress, caffeine addiction, and sleepless weeks, I finally earned my degree, only to find out my now ex-fiancé and partner of 5 years had been cheating on me for the last 3 or 4 years of our relationship. It was devastating. I became a workaholic in my career, which has had decent returns. Dealing with that while trying to build my life back up in a healthy and happy way is a journey. I do not think I will feel young or my actual age again. I do not think I want to, since I was not kind to myself then. I think I would like to grow into who I am, at whatever age I find that at. Story 49. I was born 30 years ago and have remained the same age. I am now 41 years old and female. I have not had children, so I do not feel like I have fully matured. Story 50. I am not even 19 yet. I have the mind of a 13-year-old and the body of someone in their 40s. My back cracks every time I get up, and my knee gives out when I have been walking or running too much without warning. Story 51. 90% of the time I feel mature for my age bracket, at least in my 30s. But that other 10% is weird. I get stupidly excited whenever anything related to Godzilla is released. Story 52. I'm 42. In many ways, I still feel like I am in my late 20s or early 30s. However, it has been a difficult 5 years. Some weeks in the last few years have felt like a decade, and I am having a hard time imagining myself working a full schedule for another 20 years. Maybe that is what your 40s are all about. Finding the balance between retirement and youth. Story 53. I am 72. I believe I make better life choices than I did when I was in my 20s. Unless you develop a mind-altering disease like Alzheimer's or dementia, I do not think you change mentally with age. It is your body that betrays you. Story 54. I am 24 years old and feel my age. I think I know a lot, but every time I thought that in the past, I was mistaken. So I accept myself as I am. Story 55. My body feels my age, and that is my fault. In my mind, I feel 45. Those 40s were my best years. With that said, I would never trade any of it to be younger. Experience makes a life story. Relish every second. Story 56. Actual age. 19. Mental age. Sometimes 12, sometimes closer to 30. Physical age. I have the joints and eyesight of an old man. Story 57. Actually, I am 28 years old, but mentally I feel like 90. I enjoy going home after work and sewing, so my mom always says I am a grandma. The kids at work call me a grandma too because I know what dial-up sounds like. Story 58. Late 50s, feel 12 most of the time, but have moments when I am back to my trauma at age 6. Edit, to be fair, I should add that I have a few mental health issues and toxic family problems mixed in. Story 59. I am happy to say I am 42 and mentally feel 42. I also act appropriately for my age. It took a long time and a lot of therapy to grow up. Story 60. I am 42, but I feel like I am still in my 20s. However, my depression kicks in every now and then when I think about how little I have accomplished in my life. Story 61. Turned 30 recently. Probably still a kid at heart, but I do help around the house and pay my credit card bills. Story 62. I am 23 years old, but a friend of mine calls me grandpa, even though he is in his 40s. Maybe I am 60 mentally. Haha. Story 63. I range between a 14-year-old who is experiencing hormonal changes and a 25-year-old parent trying to keep kids, my friends, from eating crayons. Story 64. Better questions. How much functional mitochondria do you have? How inflamed are your obesity markers? What is your metabolic age and how much visceral fat do you have? Story 65. I was born 30 years ago and have stayed 30. I am now 41 years old. Female. I have not had children, so I do not feel like I can say I have fully matured. Story 66. I feel like I am 100. I am like a used car that seems to have low miles, but they were all city miles, not highway. Lots of stops, minor accidents, U-turns, and long periods of idling. Thankfully, I have never been totaled. Story 67. 14 but 60. My parents think I am a 60-year-old in a 14-year-old body. I just speak differently and do not understand my own generation. Story 68. I got it from a 77-year-old man who told me, through a long conversation, that he was still 17 in his mind. I sort of feel the same way. I was that age when I had my mind pretty much made up. It might happen later for younger people, the way society coddles them into their second and even third decade before revealing the truth about the reality of just being an average person in this world today. I got smarter in my 20s, dumber in my 30s, and now in my 40s, I am right back to where I started with a beat-up old body. Story 69. My actual age is 37. I jump back and forth between the mental ages of 16 and 21. I basically never grew up. Story 70. I am 28, but I really feel like I did not mature much past 18 to 20 mentally, and my body feels 40. I am just as lost about what I want to do with my life, and I am very disorganized. I still struggle with adult tasks like making appointments and doing my taxes. I strongly suspect I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some family members have it, and some friends who have it are also convinced I have it, so that definitely does not help. Story 71. I am going to be 55 next month. I am stuck in the bedazzled jeans, funny t-shirt, rock band t-shirt, kitty cat bob sketchers, dyed hair, anime watching, Weird Al loving, concert going portion of my life. So probably 28. Story 72. I'm 40. My spirit feels 65, emotionally 18. I enjoy talk radio and weather originals, but I can't handle very much emotional conversation. Story 73. 16 to 17 years old, and then I realized that I was insulting children on TikTok. I did not think that I, as an adult, was insulting children on streams when I should have been advising them or maybe even setting an example. But no, instead, I was writing nonsense to them. I am starting to realize that I am deeply troubled, and when I look back at it, I feel very bad about myself. On top of that, considering other mistakes I have made in my life, the image that forms is of a completely messed up person. Simply troubled from birth, stuck around the age of 17. Story 74. Depends on the situation. When my sister, who is 50, and I, who am 52, are at my mother's house visiting, we act like 9-year-olds and bicker. Other than that occasional predicament at 52 mentally. Story 75. 34 years old. Physically, probably 40. Mentally, good question. I will let you know why my brain chooses an age range. It goes from about 12 to 60. Story 76. I am 40, right around Generation X, but close to the millennial cutoff. I feel a little old, like 60, when it comes to knowing how to do things. I change peers and younger people's tires for them all the time because they don't know how. I understand the frustration of kids nowadays don't know how to do anything. I also grew up in a great economy and did what I was supposed to do: go to college, get a job, buy a house. Now, the system doesn't work. I was in high school during September 11th, right at drafting age, and graduated college during the Great Recession. Mentally, I feel old but also young and angry. Story 77. I really wish time would stop for me at 15. That was the happiest point in my life. I still carry the kid me in my heart. Story 78. You could add to this and say you have three ages: chronological, mental, and physical. Some people's bodies break down like the elderly even when they have not been on the planet for 3 decades. Story 79. In my 30s, during the day, I am usually mentally my own age or twice that, but emotionally I can be half my age or even younger. It depends on factors like pressure, stress, and anxiety. Story 80. I am in my mid-20s. I really feel like I am 10 to 16 years old, but my body feels like I am 16 years old. Does that make sense? Story 81. I'm 20, but mentally, I would say I am somewhere over 35. That might sound like a stretch, but with everything I have been through, I think most people would agree if they really knew me. I am not claiming to be smarter than anyone, but I am solid mentally. I do not crack under pressure. I do not fold when someone yells, and I do not apologize unless I actually did something wrong. I also do not act recklessly, can calm people down, take the lead in dire situations when it seems like the best idea, and I try to be a good example for people younger than me while also not being boring, of course. Additionally, from the age of 14 until 19, I lived alone. Not many kids get to deal with that. Now I have been living with my parents, but I will be off to university. I have saved money and will be getting my own place too. I would like to say there are two types of mature people: people who matured with time, and people who matured because of life. Story 82. 18, but I feel a bit older. Not in a I am more mature than others way. I just find certain things people around my age group do are not really enjoyable anymore. Story 83. I will be 37 this year. I am still mentally a teenager, between 15 and 17 years old, due to a combination of autism spectrum disorder, borderline personality disorder, and traumatic events during my childhood. Story 84. I am 35 years old, and I feel like I am 200 years old. I lived through a time when I occasionally used gas lamps and had to change the lighter. I had a black and white television and a vinyl record player. Now, we are talking about the possibility of living on Mars. Story 85. I feel like I am floating. I am making bad decisions and good ones. I have not let myself get close enough to anyone with relationship potential, so that I could be tethered to anything I do not want to be in. But I am also realistically surrounded by great friends I can call upon at any moment. Lonely but supported. Alone, though. Definitely alone. When it comes down to it, when I wake up and want company to do something, an adventure, I have friends who are adventurers. But if things were really serious, I am not sure. Yes, but I am fine. Story 86. I am 33 years old, and most days I am a pleasant but wildly naive 13-year-old boy. On some other days, I am cool and collected but still somewhat unintelligent at 26. Throughout all ages, I am annoying. Story 87. I feel like I am 55 though. My career is booming, and I just want to golf. I have no interest at all in going out to the bars late at night. I like to be in bed by 9 at the latest. Part of that is having children. I am tired. Story 88. I am 26 years old. I feel I have the social skills of a 19-year-old but behave like a 50-year-old. Boring and just wanting to work and be left alone. Story 89. I am 34 years old and still feel mentally like I am in my teens. I never got to do anything at all growing up and missed out on nearly everything. I feel like I want to have experiences in my life but do not know how to start because now I work from 9 o'clock. It is 9:30 right now, and I am in the work back room just waiting to be able to close. Story 90. Mentally, about 29. Physically, 71 and starting to feel it. But I tell people I'm only 12. 12 is the perfect age because you are still a kid but not a teenager yet. Story 91. I'm in my late 20s and I definitely feel my age. I'm saving for my retirement, working on my communication skills, and happily settling into a boring lifestyle. Story 92, 43. My mind still thinks I'm 25, but my body feels like 135. As someone once told me, and it now applies to me, I can't stop growing old, but no one can make me grow up. Story 93. I am 35 years old. Sometimes I feel like I am still in my 20s, but most of the time I feel like I am in my 60s. Story 94. 35 going on 120. I have the memory of a goldfish and have seen too much. Not exaggerating but somewhat joking. Story 95. I am mentally the same, but my interests and skills are somewhat old-fashioned. I like to fix things and prefer to use something until it no longer works rather than getting a new shiny item. I feel like I went swimming on Tuesday and then drove for hours on Wednesday. My shoulders are still kind of sore today. Story 96. Mentally, I am probably more of a child than anything else. I am 37 but have been on fixed income since age 15 and never had to work. Most of my 20s were spent in psychiatric treatment institutions and adult foster care homes, also known as group homes. I signed myself over to a guardian ad litem at age 19 after checking myself into a psychiatric hospital to escape a community of teens my age trying to coerce and convince me into drugs and alcohol while I was trying to finish high school. I attended about a year at Macomb Community College and spent the rest of my 20s stuck in my father's basement. I have not experienced the world in a way that would nurture maturity. I also spent about 3 years of that basement time with severe suicidal depression, during which I cut out all movies, television, games, and even music for a while until I exclusively listened to music. I attempted suicide more times than I can recall. I am probably mentally closer to a teenager than the 37-year-old body I have. Art is my only safe space. I am also in weekly therapy and plan to continue indefinitely. My therapist is encouraging me to socialize with no excuses and to acknowledge the negative influences, anxiety triggers, and unsafe individuals in my life. This would be helpful, except that one of those severe emotional and mental drains is currently a 62-year-old roommate who seems to be refusing to leave and piling towers of boxes in the living room, making the clutter practically unbearable. I have regressed since moving here, as acknowledged by both my therapist and myself. So, I am probably a little younger mentally. Story 97. A couple of years ago, someone asked me completely out of the blue how old I was. Without thinking, I said, 27. I was 55. In my mind, I am still in my 20s and in peak physical shape. I just wish my body would get with the program. Story 98. I am 18 physically, but mentally I am probably closer to 30 to 40. Emotionally, I am like 7, but we do not talk about that. Story 99. I am 34 years old. I believe I have the emotional maturity of a 13-year-old due to childhood trauma and not being taught emotional regulation and social skills as a child. Story 100. I feel like I have never aged past 17, but I also feel eternally old. For some reason, I default to 17 for a split second when people ask me my age, but it is 8:43 in the evening and I want to go to bed. Story 101. I just recently turned 68 and mentally I feel 30 or 33. But I have done all I have ever wanted to do, and if I die tomorrow, I will not feel like I missed a thing. Sort of been there and done that. Story 102. I am 45 years old and feel somewhere between my late 20s and early 30s. Occasionally, I feel like I am 18 to 20 years old again. Story 103. I am 52, but I swear I am in my early 30s. I have to stop and think about it when I see someone who is in their 50s and realize I am also. It just does not make sense that I am the same age as older people. Story 104. Mentally, 1995 was a few years ago, so I feel 26. Physically, everything hurts and I should exercise because I feel 75. Story 105. I am 24 years old and feel it most days. When I am around someone who makes me feel safe and I can be myself, that quickly drops down to about 14. Story 106. Sometimes I am mentally like 19, sometimes I am mentally 60. Kind of depends. I have always been an old lady at heart, but I also like to go on adventures and have fun. I do not want to be responsible for adulting. Story 107. I am 22 and I feel like a 60-year-old grandpa. I enjoy coffee, peace and quiet, history, and reading. I cannot get into partying for whatever reason. I have never felt the need to have a wild phase. Story 108. I am autistic, and my occupational therapist told me when I was 12 that mentally I was a 5-year-old. Even though I am 34, I still wonder how far below my age I am nowadays. Story 109. My body is 60, my birth certificate is 40, my mind is 30, my maturity is 12, and my wallet is in the negative. Story 110, 61 million, depending on the circumstances. A 14-year-old goofy immature boy, an 18-year-old boy without a clue, a 25-year-old confident man, a 40-year-old who has his life together, and 110 when my old knee and shoulder football, kickboxing, and hockey injuries flare up. Story 111. I am 29 years old and mentally 45. I am at the end of the millennial generation, but everything feels like back in my day to me. I do not fit in with any of the younger millennials today. I operate like an almost middle-aged person most days. Story 112. 55. Mentally, I bounce back and forth between 3 and 30. I am a preschool teacher. It is a professional thing. Story 113. 24, but mentally 16 and 50. I use Generation Z slang I used in high school while shaking my head at strange kids. Laugh out loud. When I was a kid, I had more fulfilling conversations with adults. Older people complimented my mom and me very often because of how well-spoken and smart I was. One lady said to my mom, "You'd swear you were talking to a 40-year-old. Now I'm just an idiot who doesn't know how to be quiet." Story 114. My wife tells me I act like a child all the time. She bought a new fan, and I stuck my finger in it to make the sound of a buzzing bee. That was just a few minutes ago. Then I made the sound of a toy car while playing with the new radio-controlled car for my nephew. I am 70, but I don't feel that way. Story 115. I am 73 years old. Some days I feel like I am still in my 20s or early 30s, and other days I feel like I am Methuselah. Today was one of those days. Good night, good world. Story 116. Astrologically, 54. Mentally older. Maturity humor of a 12-year-old. Physically, somewhere around World War II. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.